Introduce my panel in studio this morning, and I'm being joined by Dunstan Omari, lawyer, political analyst. Thank you so much for joining us, Dunstan. We also do have Dr. Brian Mutie, lawyer, electoral governance expert. Thank you after so long. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, leader, Green Thinking Action Party. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us this morning. And of course, via Zoom is Ambassador Jack Tumwa, former commissioner of the now defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya, joining us all the way from Bungoma County. Thank you so much, sir, Ambassador, for joining us this morning as well for the conversation.
My pleasure.
Indeed, indeed. So first we'll just take a look at, of course, what's on the dailies, and I guess we'll begin with, of course, the Daily Nation. And on the front page of the Daily Nation, there are pain points, and this is all about the politics there. And it's on the campaign trail, we'll see. And this is a report by the Nation Newsplex analysis, which reveals where Deputy President William Ruto and Azimio's Raila Odinga have pitched camp in the last 6 months as the vote hunt in the State House race enters the home stretch. That is on page 12 to 13. We'll be getting a bit, let me just try and see if I can get much more depth into those pages. But before that, also on the Daily Nation, on the front page, bail us out. Magoa asks private schools of a junior high school. So let me get to page, that page 13. Okay, So that's right in the middle of the newspaper, and there you have it. So you can see the Daily Nation actually talking about the number of times Ruto and Raila have toured each region in the county between January and June 12th. Western, perhaps, for example, Ruto has visited Western 22 times. Raila Odinga has visited Western 14 times. And there you have it, Nyanza, Rift Valley, Mount Kenya, Northeastern Coast, Ukambani, as well as Nairobi. Dunstan, what do you make of these particular regions? Very interesting to note that, for example, Ruto has made 36 trips to Mount Kenya within that period between January and June this year.
Baba coined the term bedrock. Now in the American and other regions, they are called the blue regions, the black, the navy. In Kenya here, we have regions that, one, have a solid base. For example, Mount Kenya region has quite a serious constituency of voters, registered voters. Western Kenya has a huge number of registered voters, Rift Valley. So if you see, the concentration is based on the number of the votes. William Ruto has made a lot of effort in Mount Kenya region.
Right.
When Baba came in and brought Senior Counsel Mother Karua, it seems that Baba has now left Mother Karua to deal with William Ruto in Mount Kenya region, as Baba is centered on the Maa region. The Narok region and the Kajiado region seems to be Baba's biggest interest in terms of getting the Maasai vote. If we also look at the concentration in Western, is almost at par. All of them are visiting those areas.
Okay.
The only critical question is visiting going to turn around to be votes?
All right.
Because I've been also in the campaign trail. What I'm seeing is that every candidate gets a warm reception.
Right.
Seems that either Kenyans have already decided who they are going to vote for, or anybody who has not decided, the percentage is very, very low. So I think the reason as to why we are going to see more visits, and the more visits are going to be split teams all over. If you see the Azimio team, it has now structured to 4, 5, 6 teams. Kenya Kwanza team seems to be having 2 teams. So in my own view, I think this is a proper way of campaign, where there is no region anybody is being barred from selling their policies.
All right, Dr. Brian, what do you make of, what's the significance of these particular regions for the electoral counts?
I think, to me, pointing out Western and also Mount Kenya region,
right,
in terms of the number of visits by those two, protagonists, to me, I will first throw the theory of those areas being unclaimed areas. in the sense that there's no substantive kingpin who is actually vying for the presidency as we are talking right now. Because when you look at Western, there's not that solid candidate who is actually a flag bearer. When you go to Mount Kenya, you find there's no candidate there for the presidency. So for me, I think these are votes for grabs, and that's why the two sides are actually, upping their game to ensure that they have to go and, grab those votes which are not ring-fenced, so to speak. When you look at the...
But you must agree that at least Mount Kenya is sort of, has a solid hold. I mean, the deputy president has solid hold in some of these regions. You have Raila Odinga, solid hold in parts of other regions.
Well, it's a 50-50,
right,
because any party can claim a share, a sizable share in that particular region.
Okay.
Because when you look at the wave around there, you find that Ruto has also deep roots. When you look at Baba, because of Karua factor and also he himself,
okay,
of course, those are underlying factors. When you look at Ukambani, the number of visits by Baba are very minimal because Kalonzo has already grabbed and has already ring-fenced that region. And that's why there's not so much need to go and, look for what is already, solidified for Baba.
Okay.
So those are some of the factors that perhaps I would be able to theorize in this kind of forum.
All right, and maybe let's just get to another story as we continue to take a look at the newspaper so that we can cover more ground here. And one of the other very interesting story, and of course it's been part of our biggest story last evening, of course, is IBC seeking to quell the fears on the use of the digital register. And they have the numbers there. And the numbers, you can see 22.1 million voters. This is the total number of voters eligible to vote in the August 9th election. 46,232, the number of polling stations up from 40,000 back in 2017. And they still have other numbers like the 246,000, the number of dead voters expunged from that particular roll. Before I get to Dr. Green, let's get Ambassador Jack on this issue. And of course, this is going to make a huge point of our conversation, Ambassador. What do you make of this entire registration exercise by IBC? And of course, to this point, IBC has said that it is, worked out to make the entire process transparent. What is your assessment of this whole issue?
The IBC captured about 2 million voters during this time. The other voters have been on the register, I believe, from 2013 or somewhere around there. And I think the IBC is having a problem because, like you say, there are so many dead voters. These dead voters come up because our registry is not accurate, and that doesn't pick all people who pass on. I think we need to update this so that we can know exactly how many people are not on the register because they have passed on. Our registries are not accurate. I believe the law requires that when someone dies, is registered. I'm not very sure that this is done as regularly as it is supposed to be. Now, the 22, there was some we had not too long ago, they did the audit, and the audit came up. It was not very pleasant. The information we got from the audit was not very pleasant.
Right.
I'm aware that the IBC tried, I think, last night to state that the error has been corrected. Perhaps the public is entitled to know what caused this omission of people who were moved from one station to another.
Yes.
An indication. What the IBC need to do is to give us information if there are any changes on the register, and the register is very central. The public should be informed on what happened, how did these errors come to happen, and how are they corrected? Are we sure they were corrected? Because the register is central to any elections.
Right.
And any mistakes that may be found on the register, especially on the voting day, they can cause a lot of problems. So we need to work on it and work on it early.
All right. And Ambassador, we'll certainly be getting much deeper into that particular issue. Let me bring in Dr. Isaac Kalua Green now. You know, the newspaper talks about, and this is what we've seen as well, remarks but from other political parties especially as well, talking about the electronic identification being open to manipulation. What is your assessment of this entire process?
I think IEBC has got some work to do, and clearly there is some great effort that has been done, Zainab.
Right.
And it's to drive confidence to the voters so that people can be able to appreciate that there is confidence out of the system that is being done, how the results are going to be transmitted through smartphones or whatever BVR systems that they are going to use. I think the most of what IEBC has to do is to drive confidence to the mwananchi. Look at the numbers that have been given out, and I take specifically, very small number, an increase in inmates. What does that tell us?
Right.
An increase of people who are out there in the diaspora.
Right.
Are people running away? Are people getting into criminality in the country? Small things that really indicate bigger wound in the country. And therefore, the confidence, and going back to what we were talking about earlier, Zainab.
All right.
You're talking about the number of the numbers that we have been taking and stocking of records of who has gone where, and the polls that have been done, the pollsters, they are being done to create confidence to the mwananchi. I think it is also time that we started changing out the polling information so that it informs the leaders. When did we have a pollster guiding on what are we going to have investors in the country employing in the next 3 months? Are we going to have people? You know, there are things that I think we need to start changing. But all this is in the hands of IEBC, and I'm sure we are going to be able to address some of these issues.
Indeed, we certainly are. Still on the Daily Nation, of course, a very big story here as well. End of the road for Sonko as IEBC blocks Mombasa governor's quest. Well, this was a decision made late last evening. I don't know if you watched it. And there you have it. Let me just get that proper report there. So the tribunal ruled that there was no court order setting aside Sonko's impeachment as Nairobi governor by the Senate. So the IEBC Disputes Resolution Committee upheld that particular decision of the county returning officer to reject Sonko's nomination papers. He lost the appeal after the committee ruled that there was no court order setting aside his impeachment by the Senate that led to his ouster as Nairobi Governor. Dunstan. Sonko, that's it? That's the end of the road for Sonko?
Well, Sonko, this is not the end of the road. There are very many layers in the electoral process. It starts from the party tribunal, moves to the IEBC tribunal. It's now heading to the High Court. It will go to the Court of Appeal, and finally, if it lands in the Supreme Court. But what is very, very substantive is that the tribunal went in terms of the technical aspect of deciding Sonko's fate. Right. Instead of looking at the merits of the case, they said they do not have any court order setting aside or reviewing or quashing the decision of impeachment. What is very critical to the citizens is that Article 99 that provides for that in any form of conviction until all avenues of appeal are exhausted is exclusive to criminal convictions.
Right.
On impeachment, which is completely different.
So more of like a political process?
Yeah, it is a political process, and the framers of the Constitution were a bit harsh because they said that once impeached, unless that impeachment has been revoked, then you can never hold a public office. So that is quite a serious question, and it's before the three-bench judge to determine whether do anybody who has an appeal against an impeachment form a basis for him to contest. And that is the gist of Sonko's matter. But still, we are likely to see Sonko fighting all the layers upwards, and today probably his lawyers will be moving to court before a final decision is arrived, Zainab.
All right, Dr. Brand, just quickly, Sonko argues that the decision was erroneous and discriminatory since there are other candidates who were also impeached or convicted for 66 years and have active appeals before court, but were also cleared to vie.
Yeah, as Danson has actually alluded, is the fact that this can only be domiciled within the criminal law element only, not only civil litigation, not another proceeding outside criminal proceeding. And Sonko and his lawyers are relying on precedents set by President Uhuru and Ruto when they appeared in the ICC and they were cleared to vie for the presidency. And of course, these are two different scenarios, because when you look at what took the duo to ICC were all criminal elements. They were all criminal issue related, and that's why they were cleared after the ICC when they were still within an active issue within the ICC. So for Sonko it's a bit different. Okay. But I would want to say or imagine that he has a fight to pick with the judicial organs that are existing, because initially, when he went to the court, he claimed that the courts told him that he has not, exhausted all the alternative dispute resolution mechanisms, and that's why he was sent back to the IEBC. And then IEBC has now made a decision. So what next for him? I think him going to the High Court, of course, is within his jurisdiction and his own right. He will get a sort of favorable, I'm assuming, because if going by what we have said, that this is only within the civil litigation sphere only of law, to me is likely to hit a snag again. But again, he is within his democratic right to pursue those channels to the latter. Whether he goes to the Supreme, whether he goes to the Court of Appeal, he's still within the dictum of the law.
So the battle is on still.
The battle is still on.
All right, so quickly, still on the Daily Nation, and we have no time, so I'll just take us through quickly. Tribunal holds duo's State House dreams. And this is Mr. Ruben Kigame as well as James Kamau. It's on the disqualification of both those which has been upheld by the committee. We also do have probe chaos at Jacaranda rally. Chebukati is urging the DPP to investigate those particular chaos. We'll get deeper into this particular issue in the conversation. We've spoken about that. Mask up. The Cabinet Secretary for Health, Mutahi Kagwe, now orders amid surge in COVID-19 infections. I think this has sort of dwindled in the face of politics, but I think it's also a very important issue to note that the COVID-19 cases are actually rising in the country. Away from that, President Uhuru Kenyatta hosting high-level talks to end war in the DRC. So that's regional news here. But there's a story I want us to not miss, and I'd like Dr. Isaac Kalua to also just get a remark on the same. It's on the last page of the Daily Nation. Senators vote on 10 trillion debt ceiling plan today. So the Senate will today decide whether to increase the country's debt ceiling to 10 trillion from the 9 trillion shillings that was enacted in November 2019 as it sits to vote on the matter. Such an important issue happening in the country, and I think it sort of, goes behind, all these other political issues that are coming up.
This is happening at a time where our country has really borrowed
for
the right reason, and reasons maybe that need also to be explained. And we have been diverted into politics, which politics takes just about the 2 months authority and then five years of development. And we need to start focusing on the real issues. And this starts with the leadership that we are going to nominate or to elect. Because this is such a big issue. We cannot be borrowing time and again for explained or unexplained reasons. And this is a very major issue that needs to be subjected to a process that is definitely very clear. Who are we electing to go and do that? This issue, has it been fully been involved in public participation? How are people working towards this? What is the implication? And we need voter education. We need people to understand what this implies to them. And I think this is a focus that we need to start looking at as a country. We have really diverted ourselves to non-issues or issues that can be dealt in a smaller way, but but we have elevated them and inverted what we need to prioritize as a nation.
All right, thanks, Dr. Kalua. And just a quick look at the Standard, of course, myth of youth vote and masked. I think we'll be taking a look at that. It is with the voter register released by IEBC. And still on the Standard, Kenyans return to wearing face masks amid rising COVID-19 cases. And away from that, we also have audit of voter register reveals, that's also on the front page, reveals youth apathy. So the question is really why? Why is there youth apathy in this election? What does it matter? And why should it be a cause of concern for all the political players and, of course, those involved in the election this year? And also still on the Standard, no cause for alarm. Ruto assures the residents of fears of poll chaos. And away from that, former NLC boss charged with land fraud. I think that you'll have to get a copy of the Daily to get more on the same. So I think that's all the time we had for the newspaper review this hour. So we're going to take a short break. When we come back, we delve much deeper into the conversation this morning. Stay with us. This is AM Live, and you can continue engaging with us. I see a lot of feedback here on social media. The hashtag you can use is AM Live NTV, at Zainab Ismail, at NTV Kenya. Stay with us.
Majamaa, tumeishi pamoja vizuri kama majirani. Watoto wetu wamecheza shuleni na hata nyumbani. Haijalishi wewe ni kabila gani. Tumekuwa Wakenya wangwana sana. Lakini inapofika wakati wa uchaguzi, chuki, vurugu, vita na siasa mbaya zinaingia hadi tunasahau hizo miaka zote tumeishi kwa amani. Mbona tofauti zetu za kisiasa zinafanya tusielewane? Uchaguzi utakuja na utapita, lakini Kenya itabaki kuwa nchi yetu. Kwa hivyo tusikubali fitina na kutumiwa vibaya.
To get Meme Kenya by Anna Ogwas, dial *811*929#. Skiza na Nation.
It's your boy Ted Agwa kama kawa kutoka kwetu Mix.
Kama we ni mwenyeji, halo, kama we ni mwenyeji.
And this week,
it's your boy for the more boy Kishamsham Kinyam Kitamsham Third Music Gang, na tuko ndani ya kwetu Mix.
Nitakuwa nakaa chini na the amazing group out of 254 Mbuzi Gang watuambie all kuhusu their recently released album ambayo imetoka juzi tu. And without forgetting the baddest producer out of 254 Vince on the beat kutoka kwa studio za Calligraph Jones atakuwa na to show the making of Sifu Bwana hit song featuring Nyashinsky only on NTV Monday to Friday from 5 mpaka 6 p.m. with me, your boy Ted Agwa.
Kenya is a country of resilient, innovative, and hardworking people.
The sovereignty.
Our journey highlights major national divisions, the unity that followed, the gradual economic growth, and our daily struggles.
I call upon Nobel Peace Prize laureate for 2004, Wangari Maathai Maathai.
Our greatest achievements are our sports personalities.
He's still in podium position, contention here, and he seems to be coming in for the second position. Oh my God!
And our national pride is the unity of our diverse cultures. Our land is blessed with exotic tourist destinations that we boast of globally. These are the deeply rooted principles of our national pride. Mimi Mkenya.
Every day, we empower our members to work, to inspire, to lead. Equity. Karibu member.
All right, welcome back to the program. This is AM Live as we continue to interrogate the state of the poll and where we are, which is about 48 days to the 9th August general election. And IBC has released the final voters register yesterday. Very interesting numbers. I'll take you through those numbers in just a moment. But as well, let me at this point also reintroduce my panel this morning in studio. Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, the leader, that is the Green Thinking Action Party. You have Dr. Brian Mutie, lawyer and electoral governance expert. Dunstan Omari, lawyer and resident political analyst, and Ambassador Jack Tumwa, former commissioner of course, the now defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya. Of course, will be giving us historical perspectives and his expertise as a commissioner once in the Electoral Commission of Kenya. Thank you, gentlemen, once again for staying with us. And I think at this point, I'll just begin with Ambassador Jack Tumwa. With the same, but before that, here are the numbers. So 22,120,458. These are the total number of voters eligible to vote on the 9th of August. In terms of the polling stations, we have 46,232, and this is up from 40,883 back in 2017. The total number of dead voters expunged from the roll, more than 246,000. 172,929 are the number of voters out of the 143 flagged with IDs and passports that do not have a matching record. And then 1,928 are the voters out of 4,000 flagged and removed from the register for being registered more than once. And also 144,000 voters flagged, removed from using duplicate identity cards, and also 145,000 voters out of 160,000 flagged, removed for using invalid documentation. Ambassador, when you look at these particular numbers, do you feel like IBC sort of clears the air on the credibility of the voters' registers, which has been under strict scrutiny over the past weeks and months?
Before I comment on that, let me go back to what was in the paper, where you stated that the youth don't appear like like they have come up in big numbers, according to the papers.
Right.
Yesterday, one of our former CJ, I think Will Mutunga, expressed a fear that what Kenyans expect from the current election may not come out, because he doesn't see any people with vigor to change this country, perhaps to what we want it to be. He expressed the fear that one side is giving so many promises, and you look at the means of affording those promises, they are not there. Another side, although it may look like it has credible reformists, it is surrounded, to use the word, crocodiles. So we don't see much, we're not likely to see as much changes as we would like to get. Those were the fears of a very senior person in this country. What about the youth who are promised heavens And we have had 10 years of very little coming out. So I'm not surprised that perhaps the youth are not coming up in big numbers as they should be to come to the election. Now, coming to your question, yes. It is, I mentioned a little earlier that the catching dead people or removing dead people from the register is a big, big task. We tried it even during our times, and we found it very difficult until at some stage we decided that we have to discard the old registers and go ahead to start a fresh registration of everybody. And that is the only way we managed to cut off people who might have died but kept reappearing on the register. Now, when it comes to people without identity, people with matching who are double registered, really that is an inefficiency on the part of the officials of the IBC. I really don't see how it comes out. The problem has been that these mistakes have been repeated over and over again.
Right.
I'm yet to hear anybody penalized for committing such offenses. And it just encourages people to go that direction. Let's accept it that we are so tribal, clan-oriented. So the officials, although they are officials, they tend to carry that identity into their official functions. And it makes it very difficult for them to be impartial when they are doing their work. And this is why these mistakes come in. And worse, if they make these mistakes and there's no penalty, they are encouraged to continue.
Very interesting remarks, Ambassador. Dunstan, picking from what Ambassador is saying, these issues are not new. They've kept recurring over the election cycles, but we've really never had anyone being held accountable for these particular issues. So where does the failure fall on?
Every institution will agree cannot be 100% perfect. The IBC of Chebukati has been very clear that already they have identified that there were administrative flaws in form of 3 personnel who are in their radar with a view of them being arrested and being charged.
Right.
2, that is the first admission that this IBC is transparent and this IBC is ready to punish from internal mistakes for people out to spoil the credibility of the IBC. So we expect Nurdin Haji to approve the charges and these 3 or others are taken to court. Number 2, the IBC for the first time has come out very clearly and produced a register that there is a preliminary register that the audit was done by KPMG. Then the recommendations were put on the flaws that are there. Yesterday, they presented now a complete register, having corrected all those anomalies. The stakeholders now, like NTV, are now dissecting what are there. Still, the chair said that still this is not the final document. They will, after getting stakeholder involvement and corrections, they will still continue updating the register so that by the time the elections are being done, the register is almost 80 or 90% perfect. Free, the IBC has come out very clearly and saying these anomalies of death of dead people, my good Ambassador Kalua is saying, the dead people, yes, we might not completely remove the dead people because the register was closed 3 months ago. Within 3 months, there are people who are still dying. Even up to on 8th of August, there will be somebody who will die and still his name will be in the register. So let us agree scientifically that we cannot be able to remove 100% every dead voter from the register. But what has IBC put in place? The IBC has put in place that in the event somebody dies and his name is in the register, the only way to make sure that name is not used to vote is to remove the manual register. Because what the IBC is saying, the presiding officer has a list of all the people in the manual register, then looks at the Kim's kit and knows 90% of the people have voted. They now go to the manual register, get the remaining people who have not voted, who are dead, or who are in hospital, or who were arrested and are still at the police stations, they are not in prison. Then they cancel the manual register, stuff the ballots into the ballot. Now they have said, by using the biometric only as the only way to identify the voters, that excludes the possibility of anybody rigging an election. Two, the presiding officers and those returning officers will not be able to know who has not voted, and therefore they will not be able to deal with the question of the tyranny of numbers, where we were saying some bedrock situations in the opposition and in government, then they were returning 100% or 105% of the voters or the voter turnout. So in my own view, I think IBC scientifically has provided a watertight solution towards dealing with the many issues that have always been there. On the question of the youths,
and we'll come back to the youth issue as well. And as well, we'll also get much deeper into the digital register and of course, the law that pertains to the same. Dr. Brian, I would also like to get your view on the integrity of the voter register as released by the IEBC yesterday, and of course from where you sit, do you think it sort of clears the air on the credibility?
First, let's give credit where it is due, because a time like this in 2017, I was very much alive. A time like this in 2013, I was very much alive to the issues pertaining voter registration and the voter registration exercises. And I can tell you that IEBC looks more prepared this time round than before. And they have taken that proactive approach that was missing from the previous handling of the electoral process. But I want to talk about the issue of the mandate of IEBC. The first mandate, when you look at their website, they have actually prioritized continuous and revision of the voter registration processes, continuous. This is from January to December. January from December, it has to be seen to be continuous. And that's what IEBC has been doing. And I think the issue of dead voters actually coming as an issue, this is an issue that we have talked about even before. And as the Danson said, of course, you cannot delete all these numbers, because death and natural attrition is a natural process and is a continuous process. Unless you say until a certain period of this, a certain period before the elections, we are saying 3 months before, this is how we are going to treat this voter registration, and the dead people factor has to be addressed at that particular point. But again, when you look at the biometric approach that we have taken as a country, this is long overdue, of course. This being not a third world country as we want to purport it, we have advanced in terms of technology. We have come of age as a country, where we are saying, when you look at internet and also the awareness in terms of usage of internet and also e-understanding in this country is quite on the higher compared to other countries. Of course, we can't compare ourselves with our neighbors here and so on and so on. What I'm trying to say is that the issue of biometric voter registration and the voting exercise is long overdue. In the US, people vote at their comforts. In most of the developed countries, people vote at their homes, at the comfort of their homes, and they do not necessarily need to go and start queuing from 5 a.m. Jostling, protecting votes physically. That's something that's an odd edge. It's sort of thinking. So what I'm trying to say is that we have seen even ODM going to an extent of conducting their what is perceived to be a chaotic nomination exercise ordinarily. But they were able to, smooth sail through the exercise biometrically and using all these gadgets, and there was no even any kind of violence that we were able to witness. So the country can also borrow, from ODM and, see how to, harvest the hugest benefits from this biometric voter registration and the voting exercise 100%. So to me, I think the issue of manuals, books, papers being carried by lorries to polling stations, this is something that perhaps I would want to say is an old school, and therefore, to me, I want to say IEBC has done its job well this time round, and I cannot wait to see how they're also going to handle the subsequent processes in future, going to the voting and also the tallying, and also the issue of transmission, which is also another big issue, because initially you had to provide those physical forms and so on and so on. Now, this time around with the biometric voter registration, transmission, and also the counting and tallying and so on being biometrically handled, to me, I think we have come of age as a country.
All right, and Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, even with this, all these particular issues when it comes to now that particular digital register that they're speaking about, and IBC saying we are going digital to ensure that, we prevent any kind of malpractice. But then we know that the law gives and allows for, an alternative mechanism in case this technology fails, So what does it mean for IBC?
First and foremost, just like my colleagues have done, allow me to congratulate IEBC for the effort that has been done. The inclusion of KPMG, who are my auditors at Honda, and the institutions that I am part of, really gives it confidence. And I think we need to take confidence in 3 areas. The fact that, one, we have done elections over a long period of time, and there are issues that have been learned over this period, and therefore mistakes cannot be made again and again until and unless we are really sick up there in the head. So there must be some lessons learned which are being implemented in a better way. IBC inclusion of KPMG is a good thing. And then the processes. I read all their press conferences and release with a toothpick just to be sure that I can gain the confidence so that I can tell my colleagues and party members what exactly is happening. They have brought out the issue of KIMS and that they are not using BVR and they are doing a lot of other things. Confidence, the processes of what they have now talked about, even having internal people being prosecuted. I think those are great efforts. And when we talk about even alternative dispute resolution, which a conference is being done in the country, which adds a lot of value to this and much more, and even the system internal resolution mechanism, I think it is perfect. Where I really want to take advantage at this early time to talk about is an area that I feel is an action that needs to be taken by IBC at the very earliest point, because I believe they have done quite a lot. One, there is the basic qualification of candidates. And this is an issue that has been happening quite a lot in the entire week. And what happens in the event, and this we were discussing at the party level, the Secretary General and the team, trying to see what are the scenarios that we expect in this country and what needs to be done. We have seen that the DPP has said that there is need to expand the investigations. The IEBC has said that they do not have the quality or qualification to interrogate the documents that are being talked about and the search qualification. I will just give an example. If you are not a Kenyan and for some reason you found your way into the elections of Kenya, and thereafter it is actually found that you are not a Kenyan, and then elections have been done and people have elected you. Thereafter, it is proven that you are not a Kenyan. And what is supposed to be done? There needs to be a way that IEBC goes out there to discuss this matter in the Supreme Court, to get guidance on what happens, because this person has used public funds. This person has contributed in the Hansard on several matters. Okay. There has been coverage and all that. Do we get this money back? And unless we deal with this kind of a situation, we are going to have a situation in this country where people are lost in terms of what action is supposed to be done. And if it is done before the election, which I recommend that it needs to be done, we are going to have people without such qualification dropping out, because the consequences are very clear as we move on. So some of these things, even as we deal with the voter list and other issues, I think there are bigger issues that I challenge them to start taking course to be able to deal for the good of Kenyans.
All right, thanks. And Ambassador Jack, let me bring you into this conversation now, and we'll get into the issue of the dispute resolution mechanism and the academic qualifications of aspirants in just a moment. But let's just still delve, I think, on an issue we still haven't really delved much deeper into, and it's still on this particular, the law that says there must be, and forgive me if I'm wrong and you can correct me, must be a complementary mechanism. In this case, some argue must be a physical register.
Yes. I may be an old timer. But my young son one time told me that if you don't want to embrace technology, you better go and live on Mars. And I started doing something about it. And I think there is no option, we have to go that direction in technology. But I'm imagining a situation at the polling station where the sensitivity is so high, so and so arrives, and technology has been known to fail. We can't be 100% sure that it will work to our expectation.
Right.
And this is why I have argued over and over that there must be a fallback situation for a situation like that. I was at the KICC 207 when someone said Raila's name did not appear on the register. Someone called me and they told me it was not possible. It was not possible that Raila's name could miss from the register. But already the newspaper had spread it all over the country. The country was going on fire. When I got into the office, Raila came with the team and with the media. And I said his name was not on the register. I said, no, Mheshimiwa, that is not correct, because between that, I had checked and established that the name was on the register, and I really didn't know what had happened for someone to start talking of the name not being on the register. I'm trying to imagine that situation, and that could happen anywhere. Where technology fails, people have lined up to vote, and there is no alternative mechanism. It is setting ourselves on fire.
Right.
So since the law talks about an alternative, so long as the voters can be educated sufficiently to know how it will work, I know there leaves some window for manipulation. But if it can be brought to the attention so that the voters know, the agents know, the political parties know exactly what is happening, I think we should go slow in erasing this alternative mechanism at that very last moment, because I can foresee a problem if something were to go wrong, and technology has been known to fail. Let's face it.
All right.
Two, have we sufficiently trained our personnel to handle the technology in the best way possible? Because it is one thing to have technology. But if we have not trained our people well enough to manage that technology, that could be another source of problems. I remember I argued this when curricula were interviewing me. They said it takes on a day to train someone on technology. I really find it difficult to accept. That was being said by a commissioner from Europe. It may be easier that way. But look at the spread of Kenya, the clerks we employ. I think we should be able to introduce this, but let's go slow. Let's not mess up the election because we have only opted on one method, discarded the others, which could save us from a problem. What was the next question?
I think the next question was if I think he has answered
has
it.
answered,
He's
yes,
I think you've answered that particular question. But Ansan, I was thinking of coming to picking up from what Ambassador was saying and thinking of, you know, a possibility, perhaps there could be grounds for petition in case we do not follow that particular law that allows for, you know, a complementary mechanism, which in this case, like I said, there's an argument could be the physical register.
Well, let me put it very clearly. A complementary mechanism does not mean a physical register.
Right.
It means 2 to 3 types of technologies can be applied. In this matter, I want every Kenyan to understand that there is Safaricom as one of the methods of technology for transmission. There can be Zain, there can be Airtel, there can be satellite. So IBC is not saying it has restricted itself to one channel. 2, this paranoia of technology failure banks in this country.
But you must agree
That's what I'm saying.
there is a possibility.
I'm going further. Banks in this country don't have any manual mechanisms. They have several softwares to deal with in case one software fails, another one goes. Third, the media in this country, all of them, there is no media house that has an analog or physical way of transmission. They have put in place several systems that are technological in perspective to deal with that. So let nobody be taken. I saw that when COVID came and the judiciary, everybody was saying the judiciary is not digitalized. Today, the judiciary took 2 weeks to put infrastructure down. It has been upgrading that system, and we have an efficient judiciary.
But you can imagine digital. It has taken a long time with a lot of challenges.
IBC started the question of digitalization from the year 2010. So it has been moving on. So I'm only allaying fears that Kenyans are so worried and so stuck of the way it was, not the way it is, and the way we are moving. Let me deal also...
You remember that simulation that was done, I think, a couple
of
2 weeks ago?
That is part of testing. If the first testing worldwide, if something is being tested and it produces 100% results, then that is not testing. Every test is to improve on the performance. The law as it is, IBC started this process that is 90 days ago. It is still going on. Let me also raise one issue that Zainab, we might forget. In the event there is flaws on the qualifications that he raised, what is the law? The law can punish before what is happening now. The law can punish before. The law can punish during presentation of papers. The law can punish as the campaigns are going on after being cleared. The law can punish after an announcement of the results in what we call election petitions. So really, the law is able to deal with every situation as it arises in the whole process. Remember, Kenyans, an election is not a one-day exercise. Right. It is a process that started 2018 from voter registration all through until the announcement of the results and also the election petitions that follow. So my point is, I also concur with my 2 other panelists that IBC, with the meager resources that you Kenyans allocated it, IBC, with the few coins that we gave it through our members of parliament, has done a tremendous job. Ask yourself, what did your member of parliament do? They allocated IBC resources a few months ago. Right. Yet we want to crucify IBC as if it was funded from 2018. So let us be realistic that with the resources IBC had, with the timelines it was given those resources, it has done a tremendous job, and let us not try to cause problems for the referee. Let us concentrate on elections, and I'm sure any dispute that will be there will be dealt with the election petitions. Remember, the Supreme Court now is fully constituted, 7 judges, 21,000 advocates are already wailing. So let us not cause chaos by trying to blame IBC as a reason not to go to court, as a reason to start post-election violence.
Zainab, as we continue on this, I think what Kenyans really want to hear is the confidence with the IEBC. I would want to see a situation where leaders from both divide say that we have confidence with IEBC. Because Kenyans don't want to know about the legal issues.
Has that come out clearly? Has that come out clearly?
It hasn't. And I agree with my colleague Jack, because when we say that law works at every level, it is very true. But we have an opportunity now to get advisories from the Supreme Court, because imagine if there was a non-qualified individual for whatever reason, 10 years down the lane, and we find that he was wrong, and he had already used public funds, does he refund the money? What happens to what has been recorded in the Hansard in this country? What all these issues? So we need just to create confidence, and we make it a very important issue that we actually have confidence with IEBC. Deal with the issues right now. Kenyans want to know that we are safe with IEBC. Hakuna kura zitaibiwa, hakuna watu watafanya ujanja, because even in the public spheres, in public rally, imagine leaders are saying tutatunza kura zitaibiwa, wale wengine wanasema tutafanya you know, that's not the discussion to have at this point. We have bigger issues as a country that we need to deal with. And if leaders are not confident with their own institutions that have been set independently, then that is the issue that we must deal with as a country, even as we follow the rest.
All right, let's have Dr. Brian and then Ambassador Jack.
Okay, I think we talked about 2 very crucial issues here about the way IBC has handled the qualifications of candidates, and the way it has actually ensured the process goes within the law. But the issue of Sakaja, of course, being an issue that has actually been taking a bigger space on the newspapers and also a good chunk of media houses, I'm afraid to say that perhaps as much as we give IBC that credit, on the issue of Sakaja, perhaps I feel that it goofed to an extent, because when you look at some of the institutions that are mandated to carry out this particular role of verification of documents, whether they are true or they are genuine or they are fake, I think to me IEBC somehow superseded its own powers and gave itself a power that perhaps it would not have absorbed or usurped. And the reason why I'm saying this is because it has set a bad precedence that somebody can come with the papers from anywhere, they are not authenticated by the only body, the Q, this is Commission of Higher Education.
University Education,
University Education, which has the sole mandate to verify, authenticate these particular documents and give them either a clean bill of health or not. But IBC goes ahead and clears a candidate,
who's still under investigation.
And who is still also in doubt by the commission that is actually mandated to carry out this exercise. So to me, I think it's something that I was asking myself, did IBC error in its, deliberation or in its verdict? To me, I would say yes, because this is a recipe for future, undertakings. Precedence has been set, and the people will be following the same. Secondly,
but remember, IBC says that it does not have the jurisdiction.
Absolutely, true. It doesn't have the jurisdiction. So that means they would have waited for Q to give them a clean bill of health so that they can now make their verdict based on information that they have been given by an agency which is mandated by law to clear a candidate based on his papers.
Can this just run parallel with, allowing, because of time, allowing Sakaja to continue to vie and allowing the other institutions to continue with their investigation?
It is okay. They would have actually treated this as a special case. Handle it in a special case because it's a special case as it is. However, a solution or a discussion can still come after the process has been finalized.
Okay.
When Sakaja is actually being sworn, if he wins the Nairobi gubernatorial seat, I wish him all the best. Well, this might raise some technical, legal issues or repercussions that perhaps will have bigger impact compared to handling this issue at the bud, compared to handling this issue at its nascent stage, so that it does not spill over or does not elongate the process, being chaotic as it is, because this is also taxpayers' money we are talking about.
All right.
But before that, Zainab, I wanted to talk about something that perhaps is an issue about the voter registration
Right.
and the integrity in terms of safeguarding it. Kenya, as a country, cannot have an excuse in terms of not investing in enough infrastructure in safeguarding the voter integrity in this country. I'm saying this because in 2017, Kenya was ranked as second in terms of expenditure on matters of elections, second to US, a superpower. Kenya, being a third world country as it is, was able to match US head on in terms of the budget allocation and expenditure on matters of elections. So to me, my understanding is that the money that IBC got at that point, the money that IBC is getting at this point is enough to invest in proper infrastructure, digitizing all these processes from A to Z, and giving Kenyans that confidence that Isaac Kalua is talking about, to ensure that Kenyans have that particular belief that we have a body that can be mandated, can be trusted to run a process from A to Z to the latter without any crease.
Okay.
To me, that one is actually a talking point.
All right. Ambassador, I know you wanted to also make a remark and respond to the issue of the queries that were raised by the, on the disputes resolution mechanism on aspirants' academic qualifications. What is your assessment on how IBC has handled that particular matter on academic credentials as we take a break?
I think I want to agree with those who say that IBC has been operating under very, very difficult conditions.
Mm-hmm.
The money coming in late, the commissioners being employed during the last year of the elections, and many other factors. I don't want to agree that at the moment IBC has got sufficient funds to do what it wishes to do, satisfactory to us voters. It is very difficult. It has been operating very difficult in a very under difficult conditions, but somehow I want to agree that it has done a good job so far in all those areas under those conditions. Now, talking generally about the law, and I think our two lawyer colleagues can help us. I think the League of Fraternity has let this country down insofar as constituting laws are concerned.
Right.
We have got the 2010 Constitution, which was supposed to be given teeth by our legislators.
Right.
They didn't do this. Now we have a problem of, when you look at the Chapter 6, in relation to what we have at 99.3, you know, it is such a contradiction. And how come we have lived with it for the last 10 years without realizing that one would make another difficult to administer? We know very well that we don't have, courts are not sufficiently staffed to run these cases in time so that perhaps they can dispel with cases in time. So we commit offenses knowing very well the cases will take years to be adhered, to be listened to. And this is part of what is happening. Now, yes, the ESCC recommended over 200 people, I think about over 200, to be struck off the register. IBC went ahead and let them in, saying the law says so long as there's got that is fine. It becomes very difficult for an ordinary Kenyan to understand how you are penalizing one person and letting the others go through. It is because of the laws that are not clear. And this is why I pray that the incoming government will have a legislature good enough to look to scrutinize the Constitution and give it sufficient teeth so that we can have cases listened to in time and we don't have this contradiction of saying Chapter 6 kipengele cha 10 on ethics and governance is contradicted by 99.3. This is where we ask our legal fraternity.
Right.
I see in the panel we have got 2 lawyers. Perhaps they can comment on that.
Okay.
That our suffering is because our laws are not. They're not self-serving. They don't serve us sufficiently. They contradict, in my view.
All right.
I'm saying it as a layman. Perhaps our legal brains can add something to that.
Okay, Ambassador, thanks. And so we really have to take a break, but we come back. Dr. Green, I know you were really itching to respond to a particular issue there. We'll take that short break on live, but we'll be back and continue with this conversation. Stay with us.
That's okay. Yeah.
Every day, over 15 million members are transforming Africa. $15 million members, empowered to learn, to create, to grow, to harvest, to lead, to dream. Equity. Karibu member.
Guys, lipstick is for mommy, not the wall. I said pick one each, one. Children, they are cute no matter what they do, but there is nothing cute about fever. Panadol Baby and Infant starts to work on fever in just 15 minutes. Trust Panadol Baby and Infant to work on fever fast to bring back their cute smiles.
Over 15 million members are transforming Africa. Equity. Karibu member.
All right, welcome back to AM Live as we continue to canvass around the state of the poll, where we are, what are the numbers, and of course, what are the preparations by IBC ahead of the polls just 48 days away. And of course, very interesting remarks before we went on break from Ambassador Jack Tuma. That's a former commissioner of the Electoral Commission of Kenya, now defunct. We now have the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, I know you needed to respond to some of the issues raised, as well as Dunstan and Brian as well. So we'll start with... All right, very, very serious allegations. We'll start with Dr. Kalua.
I will leave the due process issue to my learned colleagues, because there is indeed a very serious issue on allowing due process, because there is law and its tenets, and therefore we must be able to deal with that. So I'll leave that to them. But on my side, I will dwell on more of what IEBC needs to do and what needs to have been done. First and foremost, when the local Mwananchi hears KPMG, they imagine that KPMG is some Karanja Mutisia and something. There is need for public participation. Who is KPMG? It is that institution that was established in 1987 with more than 236,000 employees globally. A very respectable institution. What are their terms of engagement, so that Mwananchi can be able to understand? I think these are some of the things that we are lagging behind in informing Mwananchi, so that confidence can be created. Secondly, the involvement of the youth.
Right.
The fact that we only have about 2 million people who are added to these numbers,
and
when we have 75% of youth in this country, there is only pretense that the people who are up there are going to deal with the youth.
Dr. Isaac Kalua, why don't you just hold on to that, that particular bit? Let's just finish this particular topic. We come back, I'll give you the opportunity, we start on the youth issue. Right, we'll start with Dr. Brian.
Yes, Ambassador talked about Article 10, read together with Article 99 of the Constitution, and of course Article 10 talks about the values that guide us and ethos that are prescribed in the Constitution as guiding principles for the country. We're talking about accountability, transparency, honesty, and all that. Then read together in Article 99 of the Constitution, of course, which talks about qualifications and disqualifications of election of members of parliament, governors, etc. Of course, one of the qualifications, of course, is that particular person is a registered voter. And the most important aspect of that is that it satisfies any educational, moral, and ethical requirements prescribed by the Constitution or by an act of parliament. So that's where our issue is, and that's where Ambassador would want to get some clarification. But I want to tell him that we have what we call due process, an exercise that has to be followed from the onset of a case, of a suspicion of a case, all the way to, determining that particular case or its logical conclusion. And you cannot expedite judicial processes just because of public, emotions, or because the public is all over you and they want justice to be done like yesterday or like, tomorrow. You cannot do that, because judiciary has its own processes and we have to respect that. And this is a internationally recognized standard of practice where you cannot just arrest somebody and take him, as Omar was saying, and take him to the prison direct or committee direct without subjecting this person through the evidences that is adduced, getting a conviction through the judgment that has been done, and giving a verdict that is reasonable and valid with that coincides with that particular offense. So to me, I think it is a matter of just, ensuring that we have a platform which respects the rule of law and a platform that respects those rights. Because it will be sad and absurd if a candidate is barred from elections just because of politics, whims of politics, or because of the other side of competition is actually, you know, alleging certain allegations which have to be substantiated. And also, if a candidate is actually deemed to have committed some offenses, that candidate, like for example, the issue of Sonko, he has to go through the due process. He has to be listened. Whether he's a crook, whether he's a pious, the die is cast. The judicial process has to be followed to the latter.
All right.
And that's where the issue of Article 10 and the Read Together 99 comes to meet.
Okay. Dancer, let's just finish up with that matter before we move on out to the next issue.
Yeah, I want to respond to what former IBC commissioner raised on the question of the lawyers. One, we don't make law. Lawyers don't make law. Parliament makes law. That law, if it is unconstitutional, lawyers challenge it in court for it to be tested whether it is contrary to the articles of the Constitution, and those provisions are declared unconstitutional. Number two, due process, as my good colleague has put it very clearly, really irritates people. Because the people are emotional, what they call public interest, they don't like my color of tie, they want me taken to committee. The right to be heard, the right to be heard, the right to be given a fair administrative decision process in the administrative angle. The right to be given due process in court is so fundamental, and that is what is called the rules of natural justice. You don't just see somebody like this and say, this one EACC has said they are investigating him. Everybody is a suspect and is presumed innocent until proved guilty, and all avenues of appeal have been exhausted. Let me bring to the attention of the country that we felt Anglo-leasing was a serious case. And very many people, the cabinet secretary, then the cabinet minister for finance, Chris Obure, Kiungu, and others were arrested. The matter has been in court for almost 15 years, since when the offense was committed. The court declared and acquitted them. That is what is called due process. Let us not condemn people just because we don't like them. Let us not condemn people just because the due process has not been followed. And that comes as to why the IBC said we have not been given the mandate to investigate.
Okay.
That mandate is in Q, that mandate is in the DCI, that mandate is in other agencies. This is a country in Article 1 we said we have chosen democracy and the rule of law to be our shield and defender. If you look at Azimio, if you look at the formation of Azimio, you will see for the first time 2 senior counsels. Second in command is a senior counsel, Mother Karua. Third in command is a senior counsel, Kalonzo Musyoka. That tells you this formation has realized that the role of due process in life is so critical, and any country that subverts the rule of law is a country that is called a banana country. Kenya is the epitome of excellency. Kenya is the epitome of excellency. Kenya is the epitome of democracy. Kindly let us nurture the tenets of democracy for a civilized country where justice shall be our shield.
All right, that's
just before.
Very quick one, Saina, please. A very quick one.
Just
I want to appreciate.
Let's get Ambassador's remarks, and we'll get to you, Dr. Green.
A very quick one.
Right.
I want to appreciate what Mwalimu Wakili Johnston has said. What does he say about justice delayed as it is a case in Kenya?
Okay.
I'll only answer him. Fund the courts so that we employ enough judicial officers. As IBC, as I said, the problem comes to us. If we don't fund the judiciary, and we have only, for example, in the Court of Appeal the other day, we had only 9 judges other than the required 40. Don't expect a miracle from a child who has been born today and expect him to defend you in court, because a lawyer is made by a lot of training.
All right, Dan.
Let us put money in institutions for this country to move forward.
All right, Ambassador, let's just move on to our next issue.
Before
And
we
I
move
think
on, just a quick comment,
Dr. Green,
Zainab. You see, we need to address the real issues. First and foremost, appointing IEBC commissioners late, allocating funds late, actually speaks directly to the integrity of the lawmakers.
Okay.
And therefore, we need to be able to start thinking and even subject this process into a due process that needs to be a public audit that needs to be brought up at the right time to speak about what did the parliament do, because they're the ones who were actually supposed to guide the country in such a process.
So obviously there is a part of the parliamentarians that have to play, blamed. They actually should take some blame on that. All right. So there's this story on the youth vote, and look, there's been a huge focus on the campaigns we've seen, and they've been targeting the young population, that youth, the 18 to 34 age bracket. But interestingly enough, according to the report released yesterday by IBC, the number of the young people registered to vote in 2022 stands at 39.84%, which, interestingly, is a decline of 5.27% from 2017. I'll start with you, Dr. Isaac Kalua. What do you make of this? This is a very interesting report here by IBC. So the presidential campaigns are targeting, a lesser amount of the young population vote.
First of all, I want to refer you to my article last week. Please look it up from kaluagreen.com. Leaving out the youth from leadership is something that is so bad, and it is a recipe for crisis in this country. And let me tell you how the youth are looking at things. And this leads to voter apathy, lack of confidence with the leadership, as it were. I took some time just to calculate the age bracket of our leaders. Take the side of Mheshimiwa Ruto and take his running mate and the chief minister. The average age is 62. Go to the other side of the Honorable Raila Odinga, and you find that his age, that of my friend and sister Mother Karua, and also the Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, the age bracket is 67. 67 and 62 are age mates.
That's
the
small
same age.
Right.
Where are the youth in this process? Are youth an issue that is supposed to be talked only at the campaign rallies? That we are going to take care of you, we are going to be able to deal with your issues, we are going to definitely cover you. When the youth talk about even the normal mwananchi in a boda sector, they are suffering so much with so much high payment of interest for the boda that they are taking from microfinances at the rate of 5% per month. More than 40% or thereabout of whatever they have borrowed is repossessed and resold and again repossessed again. These are the issues that people need, and they can never be represented until and unless they are on the table. I am not saying that we try to change something drastically right now, but what this means is that immediately the leadership comes on board, they must be able to show legally how they are going to bring the youth on the table, where the leadership matters most. And again, you must read my article, what I wrote the other day, because it is something that the youth are speaking in their silence. the fact that they have not registered in their numbers, the fact that they can see that they seem to be forgotten, the fact that their agenda is not at the fore is something that we really need to deal with. And creation, allow me to say this, we need to focus. We are now talking about economy in this country. And I am so glad that every leader is talking about economy, all across board. No one is talking about it better than the other, because this is a real issue. What are the spaces that we can deal with? The low-lying fruits in the sectors of textile. How do we include in the manufacturing the entire chain, so that with their AGOA, we then can work on creating more jobs through producing cotton locally. When we talk about the local industry, then we talk about the leather industry. Are we developing it in the best way possible? Even before we get to the agribusiness, the automotive, what are we doing? We are in a country right now that the US dollar has gone weird, and it is caused by the COVID crisis. And therefore, after the COVID challenge, then everyone wants the dollar. It has gone extremely rare. The CBK is saying that they are protecting this with the legal procedure, but things on the ground are different. There is no money that you can do the imports. And to neutralize this, because there is competition between payment of the national debt, which has got to be paid in foreign currency, we have to get money for the investors to be able to import whatever they are doing. And what that is doing, it is leading to lack of jobs, and these are the issues that we need to deal with to support the youth in the most practical way. So let us now start concentrating on actionalizing what we are talking about, operationalizing what we are talking about in the campaigns. We need to start seeing who is going to do this. And I will not be surprised immediately after the election, any clever leader who is going to be at the top, and I'm sure we have them, is going to call for a handshake. A handshake is definitely in its own different form. Whether to agree that I will be your competitor and I will challenge you legally in the best way, or to agree to work together, because we can't waste one single day after the elections. We got to hit the ground running for the sake of the youth of this country.
All right, Ambassador, let me also now give you an opportunity as well. You actually had mentioned at the very beginning the issue of the young people, and a decline in the number of young people registering to vote in this election. Why do you think this apathy is there?
We have a sad situation. I think, like it was said by my panelists, the youth feel left out. The problem we have at the moment is that the youth that we are leaving out is not an ignorant youth. It's a very well-informed youth, university youth, it's high school youth. They have the information, but they feel left out. What is happening, and I think the biggest problem we have in this country, we have to deal with it as it is corruption. If we can get this, so that the promises that the political class is making can be turned into reality, let's find a way of bringing youth into the economic freedom. Let them find a way of making money. Let them find a way of making use of their lives at that age. Tom Mboya was a leader, I think at the age of 28, I stand to be corrected, and they did a fantastic job. We are leaving the youth out. We have made politics so expensive so that the upcoming youth cannot even join that area. We have made getting jobs so difficult so that youth have to know who is where in order to get a job. And every day, most of these feel left out. We are sitting on a time bomb, and unless, like it was said by my earlier colleague, we find a solution yesterday, we are going to land into very serious problem because of these burning youth who are under us, and we look at them frustrated, we ignore them. It is not good for this country.
All right, Delson.
Let me bring, I wish the figures are put for Kenyans to see and look at it from a lawyer's angle. In 2017, the number of people with IDs was 25,200,000. 212,096.
Right.
The number of eligible voters was 25, the same number. Which
no, 27,000.
The number of
sorry.
eligible voters
Yes,
was
yes,
25,
yes.
212,090 in 2017.
Same number, the same people with
The
IDs.
same number, which cannot make any logical arithmetic to any Kenyan with the brains. Number two, you look in 2022, now the number of people with IDs is 29 million and some figures. The number of eligible voters is 27,
right,
which makes sense. So what I'm saying, and when you look at the youths, is it true that children were registered as voters in 2017? So that those children now they were already registered, they are not there to be registered afresh. One question. That is why I'm saying the IBC is doing a tremendous job in removing these ghost people, kids who are registered, now they are not there. Number two, when you look at the number of the youths, they have talked from year 18 to 34. 18 to 34 is a duration of around 13, 14 years. Those is a population of only limited to 13, 14 years. Then from age 35 to 70 and 80, we are talking of years, 35 years, a population spanning 35 years. With the new medical improvement on NSSF, old people are not dying. People who are 35 are more. Remember, the youth, we are not putting in children who are from 0 to 18. This is a very narrow constellation of only 13 years. Can they be more than those guys we are covering from 35 years to 70, others to 100 years? Therefore, this is proper, and this is the proper demographic that the youths cannot constitute a bigger constituency, because the youth, unless you put in children, and the children are not voters, so the youth from year 18, and remember, the year 18, there are youths who graduated to be year 18. They applied for their IDs. By the time the register was closed, their IDs were not out. For example, those youths who did Form 4 this year, they are not captured here because they had waiting cards. So in my own view, I'm trying to defend this arithmetic that the decision on who becomes a leader will be determined by people who are above 35 years, and especially the age bracket of 40 up to 70 years.
Which accounts for about 60%.
Which accounts for
the
60% of the voters, not the youth.
Okay, yes,
Brian, let me give some global standards in terms of trends that have been set in terms of the space and the position of the youth in leadership. For example, I'll tell you that Kenyan youth is their own nemesis, because as much as they are the most populous in the country, the section that is most populous, they can do wonders. They can have one of their own. And I want to tell you that, well, you know, other youth from developed countries are grappling with bad leadership and so on and so on. Kenyan youth is grappling with basic issues such as employment, cost of living, issues to do with healthcare and access, how to get, you know, money for education and so on and so on.
All right.
But let me take you just on a global trend.
So just very quickly as well.
Just
as
a quick
wind
one.
Up, yes.
Yes, we can do it as youth, because when you go to Finland, the president was elected at the age of 34 years. That is Finland. Kosovo was elected at the age of 38. Georgia, 38. El Salvador was elected at the age of 37. Andorra, 39. Now, when you listen to that trend, it tells you that the youth can rise to the occasion and have one of their own at the top. But because of the nature of our economic situation as a country, you realize that those who have amassed wealth are the, aged in terms of age. And these ones, of course, have the ability to arm twist the youth. They're able to, influence them in certain ways and make their own youth look like incapable of handling leadership at the top. But I want to urge Kenyan youth that they can rise to the occasion. They can do it because other countries have already done it.
Zainab, there is hope. There is hope in just
10 seconds,
less than 10
Dr. Kalua. Yes.
The Green Thinking Action Party of Kenya has offered a 24-year-old global leader in Kajiado North. I call upon every youth who has a valid vote in that space to elect Anita Soina. She has what it takes to be a leader at age 24, and I appeal to Kenyans to really consider. And
Which
those
position?
kind of opportunities, Member of Parliament for Kajiado North.
Thank
She's
you,
the best,
Doctor.
and I'm sure there are such leaders in other constituencies and MCA positions. Let them not squander the opportunity.
Asante sana, Dr. Isaac Kalua Green, leader, Green Thinking Action Party. Dr. Brian Mutie, lawyer, electoral governance expert. Danson Omari, lawyer, political analyst. And of course, Ambassador Jack Tumwa, former commissioner of the now defunct Electoral Commission of Kenya. It is now the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for making the time to be with us this morning to canvass around these very pertinent issues. 48 days away and very interesting. Of course, next week we meet here again and we'll see the new developments on the poll in the country. This is it from M Live, but we are not ending it here. Of course, New World is coming right up in just a moment. Winnie, good morning. How are you?
It's so good to see you this morning and good to see you again, gentlemen.
Indeed.
Yes, so today it's all about and of course drugs and substance abuse.
Right.
And you know that there are talks about marijuana, legalization, all those stuff.
Of course.
But at the end of the day, the WHO says, the number of young people who are actually abusing is on the rise. So clearly there's a problem.
So where does this leave, Roots Party leader Professor Wajakoya's manifesto on legalizing marijuana? Very interesting.
This is a conversation, of course, that we'll be tackling this morning, and of course also getting to understand, these whole talks about legalizing. Where does, again, good question that you posed, where does it leave the young people?
All right, Winnie.
So yes, of course, that is what we'll be tackling today.
All right. Thanks, Winnie. Yes. And we'll be joining Winnie in just a moment. Of course, we'll now take that short break. For us, we'll continue having tea with my panel. Ambassador, I hope you'll be having tea on the other side in Bungoma. Have yourself a good morning. My name is Zainab Ismail. This is AM Live.